Today, we are taking a look at swords and what are the best enchantments to get on them for every situation. So here we are inside of Minecraft in this arena that I have for testing all sorts of combat mechanics. Obviously, looking at swords today. So first, we're going to cover every single different type of enchantment that you can get on swords, which ones you should focus on, obviously. Then we're going to talk about the base damage of every sword and what is sort of the max amount of damage that you could apply to a sword, or what's kind of like the god tier sword, the best sword that you can have. So first, let's take a look at some of these enchantments, and we have a dummy here. He has health above him, so you can see, well, has some pretty crazy armor on. So we're going to say no armor, and now you can see when we attack him that his health changes. So we'll be able to take a look at these enchantments and what it does to players' health. So first off is just straight up normal. This is without an enchantment, what a sword can do, and you want to look at a few things when it comes to a sword. First is the attack speed. That is actually constant for a sword. That would change if you had an axe. And then next is the attack damage. This all happens when you hover over the sword in your inventory. Now, the attack damage will change based off of which sword that you have. You can see over here in the creative menu, these are all the different sword types that you can have. And so the attack damage will change. So basic sword, that's all it does. Let's go ahead and smack our dummy here and just show off that, it works. So you can see it goes down 4 health points. 4 health points. It takes 2 health points per heart. So that's actually 2 hearts of damage. So you can see every time that we smack this person, then they go down 4 health points. Now, you do also have a critical attack. Critical attacks are achieved by falling. So as the player is in the falling direction and you attack, then you can get a critical. A normal attack looks like this, where only those little heart particles are really the only thing you see, but a critical attack will have lots more particles. So you'll see a ton more particles there, and I killed him. So a critical attack, that does 6 points of damage. So you can see that critical does more than just a normal attack. So keep that in mind. Next, moving on to Sharpness. Sharpness will increase the damage that your sword does. So by default, this wooden sword attacks for 4, and the Sharpness 5 wooden sword, Sharpness 5 is the most you can get, attacks for 7, and you can see that directly correlated in the attack. If you have a critical, then it attacks for 9. So 7 is the base, 9 is the critical on a wooden sword. Obviously, you're not going to have a wooden sword. Next is Fire Aspect, and Fire Aspect will set whoever you hit on fire. And so this is useful for sort of long-term battles, especially against players, because most players don't carry a water bucket with them, or they'd have to sort of divert into a water source to put themselves out. And if you're paying close attention, you were able to notice that that damage is actually 7 damage. Now, that's with Fire Aspect 2, and so I'm kind of showing off the best enchantments you can get. So Fire Aspect 2 lasts a little bit longer than Fire Aspect 1, but you can see that original hit takes this player down to 16, and then after all of the fire damage, they're at 9, so 7 points of damage are additional with that fire over time. Moving on to Knockback, and Knockback, all it does is knock back the player, and it doesn't matter if you knock them back while you're just kind of standing still like this, and it looks like they move back about 6 blocks, a little bit more than 6 blocks, I would say, because whenever I teleport this player to the center, they are standing in the direct center of that block. So whether you're standing still or you can do a critical, it's basically the same. So it's a little bit more than 6 blocks is what you're able to do knockback for. This is useful if you have a large group of mobs or players, and they're attacking you all at once. And this way you could smack a whole bunch of them all at once, and you could disperse a crowd because they'd be flown back, and you can kind of deal with them as they come. Next, Smite and Bane of Arthropods. Those are both just available to be put on this sword. I'm not going to show you anything with that because there's when it comes to actually attacking things, these are kind of enchantments that I don't suggest that you should get, but you can get Smite 5 and Bane of Arthropods 5. These will hurt. Smite will hurt undead creatures, so skeletons, zombies, that sort of thing. And then Bane of Arthropods will hurt arthropodic creatures, so that would be spiders and bees. Moving on to looting. Looting will increase your chances of getting a drop from a mob that drops something. So there's this Enderman here. Whenever you kill an Enderman, there's a small chance that you'll get an Ender Pearl, and looting will increase that chance. This is also really, really useful whenever you are fighting Wither Skeletons, because Wither Skeletons will drop the Wither Skeleton Skull, which is what you need in order to build the Wither. So looting 3 is really something that you'd like whenever you're trying to get skulls. It doesn't change the damage. It doesn't change any attack speed or anything like that. So looting is nice whenever you need lots of drops, but that's about it. Next is Unbreaking 3, and it's exactly, you guys know what this does. It will stop the item from taking damage. I've been in creative mode this whole time, but every time that you would to smack another player, your item durability goes down. So I've hit this player twice. It started off at 59 durability. Now it's down to 57. But with an Unbreaking item, you have the chance that that item will not take a durability hit whenever you attack. So I've attacked 3 times, and this Unbreaking 3 item hasn't taken a single hit of durability. I've gotten lucky. They go on the 4th attack. It finally took a single hit of durability. So Unbreaking will make sure that your items can last longer, and similar to Unbreaking is Mending, and that will allow you to not need to repair your item in an anvil. It will repair itself whenever you get experience. So if you have a lot of durability taken and you go to an experience farm, or you just happen to kill a whole bunch of stuff while holding it, then the experience will be sucked into the item and it will repair itself. You do have to be holding the item or have it be equipped on you in order for that experience to apply. So if it's armor and it's just on you, you're wearing the armor, then it'll be applied. Or if you're holding it in your dominant hand or your offhand, so either hand will work. Sometimes if I'm trying to mend a few things like a bow and a shovel, say, then I would hold one in each hand, and then you would be able to mend both. Next, let's talk about Sweeping Edge. This is a Java only enchantment, so sorry, Bedrock players. So Sweeping Edge is actually something that you have on your player at all times, and on a sword at all times, I should say. A sword will always have a little bit of Sweeping Edge. And so what this means is if you attack something, it will hit the thing next to it. One second. So you can see with this Enderman, I have him really close to the player, and if I hit the Enderman, it will also hit the player as well. Now, this is, here, let's use this normal wooden sword, and this is just a small attack, and you can see it only does half a heart of damage to the player. Now, with the Sweeping Edge enchantment, the range of the Sweeping Edge is not increased, but the amount of damage dealt to nearby entities and enemies will increase. So if I hit now this Enderman, it actually hits the player for 4 damage, where before it was only a half heart. So this will increase the amount of damage to the surrounding entities. By the way, Sweeping Edge will not happen if you are doing a critical attack. So if I'm critically attacking this entity here, it will not work. And same thing with the enchantment. You have to be doing a normal attack in order for Sweeping Edge to work. So if you have the Sweeping Edge enchantment applied and you're like, come on, my enchantment isn't working, I'm not actually hitting anything, then you may need to check that you're not using a critical attack to achieve that Sweeping Edge. Okay, so we have talked all about the different enchantments, and we've been using wooden swords to do it. So let's talk about the base attack damage of all of the swords. So starting off with 4 attack damage, you have wood and gold. Those are in the same category for attack damage. Moving on to stone, you have 5 attack damage. Iron has 6 attack damage, and diamond has 7 attack damage. And with a fully enchanted, completely Sharpness 5 diamond sword, you would have a 10 attack damage of 10. So now let's take a look at some of these diamond swords and what we can accomplish. So like we said, attack damage 10. If you just attack anything without getting a critical, then it is 10 points of damage. If you do a critical attack, then that is 13 points of damage. A lot. That's over half of whatever the whatever that player has. Now that's insane. I mean, that's a ton of damage. 13 points of damage is an awful lot. But what are the best type of enchantments to actually get on a sword? And so I'm gonna sort of come up with my golden sword. Like, this is like, well, obviously not gold, because gold doesn't attack for very much, but this is the god tier sword. This sword would be the best that you could possibly get in the game. So first off, we would start with Sharpness 5. Next, I would want something to make sure that this sword doesn't break all that often, and so that would be Unbreaking and Mending. So we're gonna put Unbreaking 3 onto this sword, and then we're gonna do the same thing with Mending. Now Mending does not have any level version of it, so Mending, just straight Mending 1 basically, is gonna be enough. So now we have a Sharpness 5, Unbreaking 3, Mending sword. Next, let's talk about what we're going to be doing with it. If we're on a single player world and all we're going to be fighting is other creatures, then Knockback, which is, where is it, right here, would be okay to enchant with. But if you're going to be fighting anybody else, if you're going to be in a situation where you're fighting players, I dislike Knockback, because normally if you're going to fight a player, sometimes they run away and you really want to get that last kill in, and if you hit them with Knockback, well, then they're going to go flying away, and I just feel like it's an annoying enchantment. So if you're going to be fighting mobs and creatures, Knockback is okay, because you might have a lot of zombies, you might have a lot of Endermen, and you want to push them away from you. But if you're fighting players, Knockback, I would not suggest it. Moving on to Fire Aspect. Fire Aspect is awesome for a few different reasons. Obviously, when you're fighting a player, it'll do 7 damage over time, but also if you are killing mobs and creatures that will give you food, that food will be cooked whenever it hits the ground. So Fire Aspect is definitely something that we want. So Fire Aspect 2, that is going on the sword of my dreams. Smite, Bane of Arthropods, we don't want it. Why? Because it's actually you can't have you can't have that with Sharpness. So you can either have Sharpness, Bane of Arthropods, Smite, and so you have to pick one of them. And so we want Sharpness. Looting 3, it's always sort of nice to have if you're able to get it. If you're not able to get it, don't worry about it. You can have that on a specific sword that's meant basically only to kill creatures that you need looting on. But why not? If we're going for our best sword ever, Looting 3. Now, Sweeping Edge. Do we want Sweeping Edge? I really don't care about Sweeping Edge all that much. To me, Sweeping Edge, it is almost annoying at times if you're like dealing with other players maybe that are on your team or something like that. So most likely you're going to be making a sword, and this could just be an iron sword for a mob grinder. It doesn't have to be your daily driver. So I would say Sweeping Edge is not on my dream list of enchantments. So that is basically it. Here is the dream list of enchantments: Sharpness 5, Unbreaking 3, Mending, Fire Aspect, and Looting. What does this mean if we attack a player who doesn't have any armor on with this sword? Well, they'll be killed all the way as long as they don't put themselves out with the fire damage, because the fire will end up killing them. So as long as the player that you're fighting doesn't have any armor on, then they will be one hit killed with this sword. But let's say that they do have armor on. What does that mean? So with diamond armor that is unenchanted, a critical hit will take them down to 16. Then they'll take the 7 points of fire damage, and that will bring them to 9. Now that 16 with armor, it's very complicated. So sometimes, like, that would have been 4 points of damage. Sometimes you'll get more. So, you know, if I hit him there and then I hit him there, that was 5 points, I just noticed. So sometimes you can get more damage. Let's see, what are they going to stop at? 17. So we hit him again. That brought him down to 13. So That was only 5 points of damage. We are at 15. Attack again. That was only 4 points of damage. So armor sometimes complicates the whole mix of things. Now, that was just straight up diamond armor. So let's go ahead and heal this player again. And then this time, give them protection 4 armor. Every piece of armor has protection enchantment. And so if we attack them with a critical hit, you can see that the first hit doesn't do all that much. That was just a single point of damage, and then they ended up only taking 5 points of fire damage because the protection that they have will also work on fire just a little bit. So there we go. Once again, that was only a single point of damage on that protection 4 armor. So it's kind of sad once you get up there with you're like, I enchanted this thing so much and it just doesn't have anything. So that's one of the reasons here. We can just show you here without all the fire damage. This is a Sharpness 5 sword. Even with a critical hit, you're going to get between 1 and 2 points of damage. So you can see why protection 4 armor is such a big deal. Like, that's incredible that even with Sharpness 5, the protection 4 armor really, really does help them a lot. Which is a reason that you like fire aspect, because you're able to get an extra 5 points of damage there with your fire aspect sword. And there you have it, everything you need to know about enchanting your sword. I hope you learned something useful in this episode and you just enjoyed watching. If you did, please give this video a big old thumbs up. Also, make sure you subscribe for future videos, tips, tricks, tutorials, and spotlights here on OMG Craft. See you next time. Bye.